For today's story, we're covering more about the ongoing issues in the federal trial against Todd Christly and the potential implications as it may relate to defamation actions by Todd Christly and others against Katie Joy Paulson's Without a Crystal Ball. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. As always, I hope you'll enjoy this legal education content, and today will be the day I earn that subscription. For today's story, yes, we are continuing our coverage of the federal trial against Todd Chrisley, which is ongoing in Georgia. Todd Chrisley is accused of bank fraud, wire fraud, tax evasion, and all kinds of financial malfeasance. This, of course, relates to Katie Joy Paulson, as Katie Joy Paulson has reported on some of these things and also reported on other things relating to Lindsay Chrisley and Todd Chrisley's potential proclivities and the appearance sense of knowing people, and goes a long way to establishing that perhaps, not so much with the reckless disregard. But let's cover this article and see what it has to show us. Let's get started with this. So let us review what apparently are the biggest bombshells from the Todd and Julie Christie trial so far. And there they are in happier times. Aww. Prosecutors have said that a co-conspirator of Todd Chrisley once sent in financial statements that showed Chrisley had millions of dollars in a bank account, which might be plausible, but, not so much. And here Todd Chrisley is with a truly hideous jacket that I would never wear pretty much ever, unless I lost a bet. So, yeah. The Chrisleys apparently have also burned through loans to purchase luxury items, trying to keep up with the Joneses, even though they are the Joneses in this hypothetical, but yeah. The assistant U.S. attorney said in an opening statement that the Chrisleys not only submitted fake documents that implied they had greater wealth than they actually did, but the couple also burned through $30 million they had received in loans on luxury items. They made up documents and lied through their teeth to get whatever they want, whenever they wanted. According to the government, the Chrisleys hid money from the IRS while partaking in a lavish lifestyle. Yeah, the IRS doesn't really like that thing. But an attorney for Todd Chrisley says the couple exaggerated some aspects of their lifestyle for their television show. Okay, as long as you're not committing the fraud and the tax evasion, sure. But, if you are, I was doing it for the television show and the memes, not the greatest defense I've ever heard. Chrisley has made several bold claims about his spending over the years. In 2017, he said during a radio interview that he paid over $1 million in taxes that year, even though the government has said he didn't pay a dime in years. And records have shown no significant payments, so not so much. And in an episode of a reality show, Chrisley Knows Best, the television personality claimed to spend about $300,000 annually on clothing. That is a large clothing budget. I'm having a hard time imagining spending $300,000 on clothing. Like ever, let alone in a year, but okay. It's all part of the sizzle. It's all part of the show. It's all part of the act. Again, you're allowed to have as much sizzle as you want, but not so much with the tax evasion. The defense has also argued that Chrisley's ex-employee who turned him in was obsessed with Todd and wanted to be him. Jealousy is in fact a pretty good motivator for many people, so sure, I believe that, of course. Mark Braddock, who was a business partner of the Chrisleys in 2012, during that time, the Chrisleys' attorney argued Braddock did everything he could so he could live like Todd, including buying one of Chrisley's former homes and impersonating Chrisley on phone calls. All right. Morris said he went on to argue that after Chrisley fired Braddock, he went to the FBI for protection and revenge and claimed Chrisley had committed bank fraud. So a former friend / potential former lover, scorned, has gone to the police and said, I want you to, here's all the bad things this guy did. This is a pretty common story, as far as these kinds of things go. So sure, why not? The defense, on the other hand, said that Chrisleys continued to lie through their teeth to get bank loans, avoid taxes. I think the prosecution probably has the better end of the case. Annie Katie Prawns, a producer on Chrisley Knows Best, testified Thursday that she met Todd Chrisley in Los Angeles in 2009. She was a former DC newswoman who moved to LA to work in TV. While trying to break into the business, she met with Chrisley because he had plans to launch a luxury department store, Chrisley and Company. Apparently, he literally thinks he's Tiffany's. Okay. No. Pons said that she was trying to sell a line of baby clothes to Chrisley. He didn't buy them, but offered her a future job as a buyer for the department store. She took the job and flew to New York during Fashion Week to try and network with designers for the future store, which never came to fruition. In the end, Chrisley owed him $10,000 in unpaid work, but it never came. Bad on paying to the government, bad on paying to employees, bad with the money, all kinds of stuff. A few years later, though, while working in TV, Pons kept thinking of Chrisley's boisterous family and pitched reality show in their name. The sizzle reel took off, and the show was sold to USA, which should bring in a lot of money, one would think. But apparently, still living beyond your means. This is proof, again, that no matter how much money you make, you can always live beyond your means. The stories of rich people living beyond their means is truly kind of disturbing and hilarious. The amount of money some of these people spend, and then they just wind up completely bankrupt. It's kind of disturbing. It's like they have so much money and they manage to spend even more. And it's also a common tale of lottery winners, by the way. The number of lottery winners who wind up bankrupt is disturbing. It makes you question whether winning the lottery is truly a good idea at all. Anyways, Pons testified she only worked for the show for one season, but be credited as a producer for the lifetime of the show, which brings in around $200,000 a year. Braddock said that he helped Chrisley falsify documents in order to obtain the bank loans and told prosecutors that he became involved in the fraudulent scheme due to the nature of his relationship with the person. We had a personal relationship of an intimate nature. I would do whatever was needed to get done. I bet you did. Braddock and Chrisley's personal relationship lasted for about a year, and then they went on to have a business relationship and a brotherhood. This is kind of disturbing to me, but okay, that's how they want to roll in the Chrisley-Braddock world. All right. According to Braddock, he and Chrisley paid $38,000 to a would-be blackmailer. Braddock also testified that during the employment at Chrisley's foreclosure management company, Chrisley Asset Management, he and Chrisley were contacted by an anonymous texter at one point. The texter threatened to go public with Chrisley and Braddock's fraud, as well as their affair, he said. The text showed, pay cash and we'll shut up. I mean, that is classic blackmail. According to the ex-partner's testimony, they made 4 $9,500 withdrawals. So, okay. This is interesting also as well, the $9,500 withdrawal thing, because this also could lead to a charge called structuring. So I don't know if that is a charge that's been given, but I'll just tell you why. It's a bit of point of legal education. Okay. So there is, I believe, there is at the time, and I believe it's still the limit, although they were thinking about changing it. I don't think they did. But there's a $10,000 limit for transactions. If you do a transaction of more than $10,000, it's reported to the government. Now, of course, if you're doing wholly legitimate transactions, on some level, you don't care, right? You don't care. It's like, okay, yeah, there's a report of this, but it's just a way for the federal government to know if you are, for example, laundering money or claiming more money. It's a way for them to discover tax fraud, tax evasion, banks fraud, right? So it's like a mandatory reporting thing. Any transaction of more than $10,000 gets reported to the government for them to discover if you're cheating. If you're doing everything legally, then fine. So some criminals went, aha, I'm a smart criminal, so I'm not going to do the $10,000 thing. I'm going to make sure all my transactions are below $10,000, which at $9,500 looks suspiciously like that might be its purpose. Well, the federal government was smarter still. They came up with a new crime called structuring. So if you are doing this for the purpose of evading the $10,000 thing, that also is a crime. So if you're doing less than $10,000 deliberately for the purpose of evading the reporting, that also is a crime. So just to let you guys know, so you can be better in your legal affairs, it is perfectly legal to transfer more than $10,000. It's perfectly legal to transfer less than $10,000. If you're doing it for the deliberate purpose of evading the reporting, the federal government has a crime for that too. So the more you know. Let's go back to the article. Insider previously reported that Chrisley fired Braddock in 2012. Chrisley has since alleged that Braddock stole money from his family. Chrisley's attorney, Bruce Morris, alleged that in his opening statement that Braddock was obsessed with Chrisley and wanted to be him. Morris implied later in his cross-examination of Braddock that he believed he was Chrisley. It seems that way a little bit. The Chrisley's daughter reported to the FBI that the father and brother were extorting her. Let's learn more about this extortion that was alluded to in the previous article we covered, but didn't go into any detail. Here is Lindsay Chrisley. Okay. Lindsay Chrisley, Chrisley's oldest daughter, told the FBI in 2020 that her father and brother Chase were trying to extort her and threatened to release a prurient tape. Emails from Lindsay Chrisley to the FBI were shown to the jury Thursday, in which she said she was trying to get a restraining order against her father, who was harassing her. She made similar comments on Dr. Phil. I am in no way, shape, or form connected with the monster. On Thursday, however, she was combative with the prosecutor, who was asking her about reaching out to law enforcement about her dad during cross-examination, prompting the judge to intervene and telling her to stop answering questions in that tone. She also said she had learned there was no sex tape and now doesn't believe her father was behind the extortion. So apparently the tape never existed. Maybe, maybe not. And now doesn't believe the father was behind it, although she definitely said things way contrary to that in the past, which again, as to Katie Joy Paulson, gives her a pretty reasonable basis to rely on that in terms of a defamation claim. This continues to be part of the reason why I think Lindsay Chrisley, why Todd Chrisley, let's be more precise, why Todd Chrisley pretty much has no defamation case against Katie Joy. Lindsay Chrisley maybe has a more interesting case, but until it gets filed, I can't analyze it. But if it ever comes, well, we'll analyze that one too. But I think Todd Chrisley's case is laughably insane because, you know, of this kind of stuff was in the zeitgeist. Kind of reasonable for Katie Joy to rely on it to some degree. On Thursday, okay, we read that part. On direct, she said that her father had been her primary caregiver when she was recovering from an eating disorder in 2008 and also dedicated this time to care for Kyle, who was dealing with a substance abuse disorder. Thus, that brings us to the end of this article about the biggest bombshells from the Todd and Julie Chrisley trial so far. It sounds like a whole dumpster file. It sounds a lot like Todd Chrisley's going to prison. At least for the moment, that brings us to the end of discussion of this case. Thank you so much for being part of the Uncivil Law family. If you enjoyed this legal education content, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. We appreciate your continuing support. Until later, my friends, cheers and goodbye.